Okay. We're live streaming, I think. Jeff, please mind your language. We are live.
Holy smoking petunias.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to a very special show today, special for Kelly and I for so many reasons. We have just two beloved guests with us. It is the first podcast in our new series, so that's also very special. And I'm sure we're going to talk about some very special topics as well. So lots of special. Today we have Jeff Dunphy and Marie-Ève Bonneau with us, newly married. Of course, they've been together for a while, but they are doing extraordinary work in the esoteric world and the esoteric community, helping people with their ascension journeys, their healing journeys, you name it. If you want to check out their full bios, please do look in the description of the video underneath. And we're going to be talking more about their work as we get on. But Jeff and Marie-Ève, a huge welcome to episode 1. It's great to have you live, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. We're so excited to be here, and you guys are special to us as well. So we're thrilled to join you today.
We're happy to engage in this beloved conversation about this next chapter.
Amazing. Yeah, it's going to be a heck of a show. We've got about 60 minutes, guys. So Jeff and Marie-Ève are just amazingly busy with the work they're doing. In fact, Jeff is jumping into a class straight after the podcast pretty much. And I know Marie-Ève is super busy with her amazing clients. So let's get on with the show. I want to just start with maybe just getting you to introduce yourselves to the audience. Marie-Ève, maybe we'll start with you. A little bit about your journey to what got you to here, and sort of what you're doing right now, as much as you want to share.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just going to say, absolutely. We did get a little teaser in the trailer talking about some of the experiences and the initiations that you've gone through. So if you wanted to elaborate on that.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a psychotherapist and a psychospiritual guide now, but that is a new iteration of my life and of my work. So before that, I was a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher, and a dancer. And my life took a radical turn. In my late 20s, I became very, very ill and ended up going through a decade-long chronic illness, which was also a spiritual initiation of the highest order, which completely changed the way that I understood myself, experienced myself, and also the way that I understood life and my place in it. And so as part of that dark night of the soul, I tapped into a new vision for my life and received sort of new marching orders, if you will. And that's what gave birth to my work as a psychotherapist and a psychospiritual guide. So I now share the fruits and the wisdom of that undergoing and of my life experience with my clients, both in one-on-one and in group settings. And I love what I do. I feel it's such a blessing to be able to do what I do.
Amazing.
Yeah, late 20s, that's very young. So would you say that would be when your spiritual awakening started?
I think it was the doozy, but it was also Saturn return. As we know, in our late 20s is often when, am I allowed to curse on here? No?
Oh yeah, far away.
That's when the shit hits the fan for a lot of us. A big awakening.
Crazy. And we'll come back and we'll dovetail. Everything connects here. But Jeff, do you want to share a little bit of a version of your story as well, and how you've come to do and are doing what you're doing today?
Well, I came to my dark night of the soul when I was a young man, and my mother died in my arms. And it was sort of the best of times and worst of times. She died in my arms, and yet she didn't die in my arms and left me with a message that not only am I not dead, but you continue to live. And so that started as a teenager. And so I was, relatively speaking, metaphorically speaking, I was orphaned at a young age. And I've always been curious about the ancient teachings. And I tried to live in the normal world, in the practical, real world for, a couple or 3 decades, and then succumbed to the world of the esoteric and the metaphysical. And books would fall out of shelves and in bookstores, and whenever I was reading stuff, it would be as if I knew the authors, and it was a very magical journey. And so I've been guided, as Marie-Ève has been at times, where you just listen and you get an inspiration and you follow those inspirations. And so we're now here being the way showers, if you will, of this this dawning of the new age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
Do you think that the books falling off the shelf was your mother, like some other energy coming in, or do you think that that was more just you coming into your power?
It was probably both, Kelly. I suspect the fabric of the serendipity of the soul giving you messages takes a while for you to figure it out. But in retrospective confirmation, you look back at stuff that happened and you go, I remember when I was 18 or 21 or 24 and this showed up and this showed up. And you just, there's something going on to reconnect you with your divinity, with your soul, with your genius. And that's a very important thing to see, because oftentimes looking back, Steve Jobs did a convocation speech years ago at Stanford, I think. And he just said, looking back on your life, you can connect all the dots. And I think it's one of the things that certainly happened with Marie-Ève, and it certainly happened with me. When you look back and you go, I didn't realize how significant that event was, but I now see that it lent itself and led itself to something big.
Yeah, so many synchronicities and spiritual nudgings.
Yeah. Now, Jeff, I've known you both for a number of years now, I suppose. And Jeff, I've obviously spent more time with you, but you guys just influence each other so beautifully. And I think, just for the audience's sake, I met Jeff when I was really moving, or just hungry to move to another level of my ascension journey, my path, looking for really a mentor, a teacher, or teachings, and both, to help me take my path to the next level. And that's how I sort of was introduced to Jeff, and of course Marie-Ève concurrently as well. So the work that you guys are doing, they're in different lanes, but they just feed into the same highway so amazingly. And I suppose that leads to the first question, which is, there's all kinds of stuff going on planet Earth right now. It's a crazy, whichever country you're in, I think you can avoid it anywhere. There's crazy things going on. So maybe Marie-Ève and Jeff, you can answer however you want to, or together. What is your version? What is the way you would describe what's actually going on the Earth right now?
It's interesting because Jeff and I follow this in very different ways. So Jeff spends his mornings looking at, his I want to call them data streams, right? Looking at what's going on in the world and really keeping on top of all that. And I actually don't do that at all. So my sense of what's happening comes very much through my intuition. I'm a hypersensitive, I'm an empath. And so I really trust myself to attune to what's happening in an energetic sense or an intuitive sense, whereas I don't follow current events the way that Jeff does. So we're complementary in that way as well. If there's anything major going on in the 3D, he knows what it is, but I'm sort of feeling and attuning to the waves energetically. So I believe that we're in a time of upheaval, because it is a time of healing and awakening and transformation. And we see this even in the human body, that when we are ill or unwell, I lived this in my journey, and you bring in medicine into the body, you feel a lot worse before you feel better. And so I think what's happening on Earth is a kind of healing crisis, where as awakening occurs and as the light comes in stronger, we feel worse before we feel better, and we see a lot of calamities surface. But it doesn't mean, in my opinion, that things are moving in the wrong direction. It's a detox of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember you saying in the trailer we have to go through the descent before the ascent, and not a lot of people focus on that, but it's just a big portion of the journey. So thank you for that. Yeah. And you, Jeff, being embedded in the current events, what do you...
Well, I lived in the supposed real world for a long time. I was in the banking industry, the investment banking business, the money managing business, and I was witness to, I guess, the dog-eat-dog nature of it. But then I was also witness to the profound aspect of greed involved. And so it gave me quite a distaste, and it also made me quite ill at certain junctures in my life. And when when all of the travels, I took many years off and kind of went walkabout, and I went to many of the sacred sites in the world and saw it, and was very hungry for the sort of the underlying golden thread of truth that ran through a bunch of stuff. And it always fed me in the biggest of ways, where the real world always kind of made me sick. So I extricated myself from that. I was in the educational institutions, the University of Calgary, and taught as a professor there in both the commerce faculty and the engineering faculty for a while. But there's something about this time that we've chosen to be here in, and we're called to be way showers and messengers of stuff that has been known about for a long time. And as Marie-Ève just pointed out, we're going through a shit show. We can say shit show, right? We're going through a shit show, and
Marie's broken the ice. Don't worry.
Yeah. We're going through the collapse of an old paradigm, and it's changing, and it's quite incapacitating on one hand, but it's also quite vivifying on the other, because something new and better and bigger and more full of light and love is coming.
I also think that it is a deeply exciting time to be alive. And those of us that are here bringing light or being of service, there are so many amazing beings on this planet right now. I'm deeply honored to be here walking amongst so many amazing way showers and amazing healers and light bearers. It's very inspiring. It's an inspiring time for this new wave of consciousness.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that there is, like you mentioned, kind of this chaotic upheaval happening. So a lot of people are just initially waking up to this now, and they're starting to really become aware of, okay, maybe there is a lot of deception, and maybe I don't really feel good, contributing to this system. I'm looking to leave, but there's still a lot of fear. And I think there is a lot of seeking just for knowledge and support, and just people are really trying to figure out right now. And, I can speak for myself. And I was telling David earlier, I didn't know if I had told him this originally, but it was about 3 years ago when I really started, my spiritual awakening. And I was always very much awake to the truth and very much a conspiracy theorist and all of that. But, the real spiritual side of it, when I started seeking, it was like I started seeking help, like self-help. I wanted to read the books. I wanted to gain knowledge. And one of that was, oh, hey, I have all these benefits for psychology and therapy. I want to, look for somebody who can kind of help me dive into some of this inner child stuff and some of this wounded stuff. So I remember having benefits and being excited to use them. I told David, I actually Googled spiritual psychologist because I wanted somebody who I could connect with, who I was, who could really help me with that aspect where I could be myself and explore that side. But of course, I didn't know anything about psychology at the time. I was living in Edmonton. I see that we have some guests joining from Edmonton, so that's wonderful. I thought that I had to see a psychologist in person in Edmonton. So I was seeking spiritual psychologist Edmonton. So I don't think that, you showed up, a bunch of like Christian faithful people showed up, and I ended up connecting with one of them, and that was fine. That was great. But I think that, when we're seeking something spiritual, a lot of the time we do have, benefits and resources. And like you say, Jeff, you're kind of put on this path towards education inside the system, inside universities. You're guided to doctors and psychologists that are very much registered and regulated. So I think it's just incredible that you are a registered psychologist and people can use their benefits to go and see you. And obviously through COVID, all of the therapy sessions have now been online on Zoom. So I'm very much aware that I do not need to see a psychologist in Edmonton and that I can be, having access to that. So I was just going to say, I think there really is this seeking for knowledge, seeking for support and help. And what would you guys say to those who are really just coming into that spiritual path? How do we kind of eliminate some of the fear and confusion and really navigate through this chaos? Like, where do we start?
Well, I think one of the things that happens at this point in time is that there's a real hunger inside a lot of people. There's also a very distinct knowing that I don't fit in. I feel like a black sheep. I feel like I'm awkwardly living in this world and nothing seems to make sense. And I think one of the things that happens is with that hunger, we call it spiritual unrest. And it's part of your genius or your soul saying to you, oi, figure it out, ask some questions, start to investigate. And I'm going to defer to Marie-Ève in her practice, because one of the things that she's seeing in her practice, which I will let her describe, is a very definitive example of that.
Of what? Sorry, I'm not sure what you want me to speak to.
I don't fit in. I believe all of that whole
yes,
scenario, right?
I think I want to speak to Kelly's question, though. And Kelly, I would just say that what I would say to people who are just starting to wake up and feeling the stirrings and feeling that awakening, percolating inside of them, I would say to not look further than your life. I believe that the stuff of our lives is the stuff of awakening, that whatever is showing up in your world, whatever challenge you have in your relationships or your finances or whatever, this is the practice. And I think that many people on the path are looking to leave their humanness or leave the day to day. And, we hear that a lot on the Ascension conversations. And I think for me, I see the spirituality as really taking place in the grit and the mess of daily life, of being human. And the awakening in my mind and in my experience happens amidst our daily life and the mundane, and standing in line at the grocery store and feeling frustrated while driving. I mean, this is it. This is all of it.
Yeah. And the Law of One talks about many of the wanderers here, if not all of them, or the starseeds, all souls, whatever you want to identify with in that sort of that titling. Many of us have come from the sixth density. And so we're used to creating with thought. We're used to doing things in the love life. We can't even sort of fathom it in our mental minds here in the human body. So coming down into a density like this, we do have some kind of soul memory of, oh my goodness, this is very, very difficult just to do simple things. It feels like I'm walking through mud all the time or what have you. I love the conversation here, because I think there's a lot of people right now who are sharing a lot of information and trying to make sense of the outside world before they've got the inside world barometer and needle true north. And of course, it's an ongoing journey. But and the way they present information and what have you gets caught up in this egoic place whereby we have division come in, we have belief systems that are sort of attached to our identity in some ways. We do this. And so when someone challenges our narrative online, it's an attack on our identity. And then you, of course, get the ego defensiveness and what have you. We've all done that to some degree. But the inner world stuff is where it's at. And I think Kelly and I, we meet so many people out and about, and we wanted to come to a place where if someone said, because when we talk about our life, well, how do I live that way? Or how do I get to that vibration? And we were like, well, I don't really know what to say to you, where to begin. So where do you go, Marie-Ève, when someone comes to you in that space? Because you have amazing clients, you do amazing work, both of you. But Marie-Ève, what would you say to someone? Where do they start? Is it meditation? Is it breath work? What is sort of the first block? And everyone's different, but where do you start people?
I think that you mentioned, like, you kind of already answered it, in just being present with where you're at. And I know there are tips and tricks to being present, like breath and just becoming very aware of your surroundings and things like that. But
Mhm.
yeah, sorry, I'll let you elaborate on that.
Spoiler. You're doing a spoiler, Kelly. I would say that where I encourage people to begin is with awareness. I think awareness always comes first, and acceptance. So I think before we can change anything, we have to first open our eyes and feel into how things are and what is. So I think awareness always comes first. And then I think often with awareness, we go into resistance or we go into judgment. I don't want this. This shouldn't be like this. And so I think that the combination of awareness and acceptance doesn't mean you'll always be there or that it will always be like this, but we almost need to land fully where we are with eyes open and soften to that before we can actually move into being at choice and make changes.
Mhm.
Wow, thank you so much. Yeah, and I think it's just great to connect with somebody who is in the psychology realm and kind of the therapy realm. You're helping other people. You are very much living that example with your own energy and just very in tune with the present moment and, you know, your own self, your own journey. You've been through it, not just trying to help people from, you know, you doing this because you feel like you want to be of service, but you've really done it for yourself, and now you can bring that into other people's lives.
This is
so thank
true,
you.
and I never claim to be at some final point of arrival, right? I'm still in it. I'm still in it. But Jeff has ideas about where to start on the spiritual path as well. Do you want to share on that?
Well, I think one of the things that happens when we get hungry or experience spiritual unrest, presence and immediacy. We use the term immediacy. It's called being here right now, and being able to stand in that place of seeing what is versus what we've been told we see or what we've been told to believe. So oftentimes our beliefs get in the way of what we see, and that creates a lot of confusion in the world. So if you believe the creeping Badunga is coming to get you, you may live a life that says the creeping Badunga is coming to get me, as opposed to understanding that a healthy immune system or just a healthy attitude, whether it's a disease of the physical body or it's a disease of a meme, a thought process or a thought meme. We need to be consciously and conscientiously aware of the thoughts that are going through our mind and being present to what's up right now. And that always lends itself to an embrace of reality as opposed to seeing what we want to see or seeing what we're told to see.
I think also what you're speaking about is getting out of automatic pilot. And I think that as long as we're living in automatic pilot or we're living with cruise control on, we don't have access to our resources. And that's where the immediacy or the awareness in itself is a kind of awakening. As long as you're living in a daze, you don't have access to your resources. You're not at choice. You can't make changes. So that's really a precursor to living awake or living in a more sovereign way on every level.
There's something very magic of it. When we sit down in class, in joy class, we talk to people about what would it be like if you were intuitive all the time? What would it be like if you could walk into a grocery store and you could intuit which were the fruits and vegetables and nourishing items in the grocery store that were best for you? You know, there's an interesting study done about very young children, 18, 24, 36-month-old children, and sitting them in front of a buffet of all sorts of foods. And almost invariably, they would gravitate to the foods that were best suited to their stage of development and their physiology. So a little kid would come along and go, papaya, this is what I need right now. And another kid would come along and say grapefruit, or another child would come along and say apples or potatoes or carrots. They would intuitively know. And we kind of lose that as we grow up. And part of the journey is waking up to our childlike self, where we can just get really quiet and listen to that the voice of the silence. It's called in the ancient teachings. Listen to the voice of the silence and allow it to guide you. And it's one of those things that oftentimes we're precluded from ever plugging into because our lives are so busy and so noisy and so fraught with distraction.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. I've never heard that before, of that study being done with younger children, but it makes so much sense because, you know, the veil is really thin with young children. It almost reminds me of, you see these studies done with like animals and ants, and, you know, you'll put like a margarine versus butter and they'll just all go to the natural butter and avoid the stuff that has chemicals and isn't man-made. And the same thing is, I love that you pointed out with food, because even just the way we prepare our food, cooking it with love and the right intention, and, you know, saying a prayer of gratitude before we eat, it makes a huge difference. You know, just getting something where you have no idea what the energy was put into. So it's just from the littlest things we really need to be aware of. And there is just a lot of people, I think, that are operating on that autopilot, and they have very strong neurological pathways, and it's really hard to break those patterns. So just, again, like you said, the awareness, becoming aware of the patterns, the behaviors, the BS, the belief systems, as David likes to refer to it as.
We've all got BS, yeah. Me more than most.
We fall victim to the indoctrination that happens from the moment we're born. And we're indoctrinated into a society, we're indoctrinated into a belief system that our parents have. You know, we ask students, who picked your name? And everybody goes, well, my parents did. And they said, so all of a sudden, right out of the womb, somebody picked your name for you. And so interestingly, when you start to realize who you are, you start to realize that you have been molded and shaped and formed and formulated in accordance with societal norms. Now, societal norms are not good or bad, but some of them are attendant to your brilliance and your genius, and some of them are attendant to and in that way of wanting you to conform to what others want you to do. So we play that. You know?
I think what we see also is that we're actually programmed and conditioned away from our naturalness. And whether that is our natural impulses and our physical impulses to eat healthy things, you know, we find ourselves trained into eating the junky cereal that's being sold to us on TV, on the commercials as children, but we're programmed in so many ways away from our naturalness, whether that's our natural ways of being, our natural instincts, even our connection with nature itself. And so one of the things that I would recommend and invite the viewer is to get back to basics in terms of connecting to the earth, connecting to sunrise, sunset, having your feet on the ground, eating more natural food. There's almost an unraveling that needs to happen back to simplicity and a natural foundation, a natural way of being a human animal. We're becoming so drawn away from our naturalness through technology and in so many ways.
Mother Nature really is an elixir.
It's sort of, there's and we're going to see this push more and more, especially over the next 12 months, I think. But there is, there's sort of, in this duality, there is the artificial version of something, and then there's the organic version, which is what you're talking about. I'll give one example. The internet is the artificial version of connecting to the divine, right? Because you have all the information, supposedly, at least it's where it's not controlled. Let's just say it's open source. You have all the information available to you. Whenever you have a question, you go straight online, versus going into meditation, getting quiet. Jeff, you're talking about this. We always talk about this. And letting it flow through, letting the answer come through. And you can apply this across our entire infrastructure right now and how we live. And we're being bombarded with these distractions to keep us from the work that you guys are doing, that we're doing, all of us, to reconnect and get quiet and let the divine speak to us, because we've got so much coming in through the senses that we're not listening properly.
Yes, you got it, David.
There's a definite agenda that's trying to keep us away from our natural self, away from really just connecting to that divine, to source, to consciousness. And it is just a big distraction. Everything is marketing, everything is to get your attention, because really it is our attention and our energy that is so potent and so powerful. And I'll just go back to what you were saying, Marie-Ève, about how, well, I was just thinking about our own DNA and our own genetics. I think it was Jeff that was actually mentioning it, but there's so many people that think they're predisposed to illness just because, their parents had an illness. So now, like you say, similar products, similar belief systems, now they think they're going to, get an illness just because it runs in their family, kind of thing. But, what we're starting to really learn about DNA is that it can change. We can change it simply with our consciousness. So do you believe that as well? That
not only do we believe it, but we have an entire program about this coming up, Meeting of the Minds. So this is a program about the power of consciousness, and that the human mind is the microcosm, but we're connected to the macrocosm, the holographic universe, consciousness with a big C. So absolutely. And we're seeing that not only can we change our genetics through epigenetic, but we can change our neural pathways. We know that we can act back on our own brains with neuroplasticity. The brain doesn't stop changing like we used to think. So our power is truly limitless. And I believe our mind is a huge hub of human power.
And I think another point that I want to point out to highlight this is the very fact that this latest episode of Let's Change Your mRNA or mRNA, let's change it. What happens is there are those individuals who know how extraordinarily powerful connecting to our DNA is, and how extraordinarily capable we are of changing our DNA to align it with something of a higher order. And the fear is, when we start to wake up, the powers that be will no longer have the capacity to control us. And in that incapacity to control us, they will lose their seat of power. And so there's a battle going on right now. It is a battle between the dark and the light. And as Marie-Ève just pointed out, we have such potential, extraordinary capacity, unlimited, in fact, and it's been kept from us. It's been hidden from us. And this is a very profound time in the history of mankind, when everybody wakes up and goes, "Oh, I am the creator. I can change. I can manifest these profound things, like the sky is the limit." And during these era changes, these epoch changes, the scope and the spectrum of potentiality is enormous. And as eras evolve, they become less and less enormous. And we're right at that place where the spectrum of potentiality is profoundly magnificent. And talk about a wonderful time to be alive.
Yeah,
and I think we're so much taught that we are at the mercy of circumstance, that we're just at the mercy of it. And I think that part of the awakening that's happening is we realize that we don't have to just be on the ride every day of something good. Good happens, we feel good. Something bad happens, we feel bad. And we're victims of this ride. And I think a lot of the power is coming back to center. My company's called Centered Within, but coming back to center, to that still place of awareness and immediacy and connection to self, to source, to life, and to then organize around that. So instead of being at the mercy of circumstances, we're centered and we're choosing what we organize around. We're choosing who we want to be and how we want to be and what kind of day we're going to have. This is a huge reversal of the way that we're trained, and people are starting to get this.
I just wanted to say I love everything you guys just said, because it really is a battle of consciousness. And we really give our power away when we get swept up into all of the distractions and everything that is trying to take our attention. But as soon as you say, we come back to center, we become very aligned with self, and we take our power back, and all of a sudden we are in control again of our energy and where we spend it. And if we want to have abundant, limitless mindsets, I think that more people need to hop on board this train and start thinking like that. So we're very excited to introduce some of your teachings. I don't know if we're there yet, or
we're going to get to that at the end, guys, so stick around for that. We've got a really powerful meditation coming up, so stick around for that. If you're just joining the conversation, welcome. The chat's kind of flying along. There was a question in there from Woody and Karen, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah, it's Marie-Ève, you talk about sort of zooming out a bit, the habits of humans. Now, everything that I've learned in leadership, just maybe in the material world, but it crosses over, of course, is that so many people, when you say, well, you need to meditate more, or you need to slow down and get quiet, and it's, well, I just haven't got time for this. You know, I work 5 jobs here, and I'm a single mom. All very valid. But what we call those is we call them keystone habits. So you fit in when you have a goal of whatever you want to accomplish, you clear your schedule mentally or on paper, whatever you want to do it on paper is good. And then write down the core habits that you need to do daily, weekly, monthly to accomplish that goal. Then fit your life around that. Well, then there's no negotiation for I don't have time to meditate, because that's your keystone habit. And I think it's a really important point, because a lot of people, they poke at spirituality, they poke at the work, and they get the poking back results. It's not the full on. But
I call these habits power levers. So I like your term keystone habits. I call them power levers. And I think a really important thing for people to remember is that you do not have to meditate for an hour or two to feel a positive impact and for it to be an anchor in your life. I like to encourage my clients and the people I work with to start really small, to start almost with micro habits so that they feel feasible. But I agree, they have to be non-negotiable. I mean, I was chatting with my mom about this recently. We never say, I don't feel like brushing my teeth. I'm not going to brush my teeth. I'm not in the mood. So I think those habits that are crucial have to become staples that are no longer up for discussion. They're no longer up for debate. And on the other hand, I think we have to be so gentle with ourselves, because we do live busy lives. Practices ebb and flow and come and go. So I think it's both. We have to sometimes put a stake in the ground, and we have to be gentle with ourselves when we fall off the wagon, because Absolutely. We do.
There's a real gem of a message that comes to us from Tibet, and I'm sure it comes to us from every part of the world, but it's just breathe. Just stop and listen to yourself breathe. You can listen to yourself breathe in and out 3 times and change the entire fabric of your vibration and the entire fabric of your day. And it's simple, and it takes no time whatsoever, but it takes intent.
Amazing.
Well, I can speak to that, Marie-Ève, because you told me to do that the other day, and it worked wonders. So thank you.
Yeah, amazing.
Did you want to have a question from
there was
Woody and Karen?
Woody and Karen. Hold on, I'm going to have to scroll up big time here.
Yeah, we'll see if we can pop the question up on the screen. If anybody else has any questions for Jeff and Marie-Ève, we are going to...
We'll come to those at the end, but I just want to... There was something I read. I'm like, I want to kind of read this out for some reason, so I'm going to do it. Woody or Karen, whichever one who posted this, said, as I'm presuming Karen, as women, we are taught to be critical of ourselves and other women. Do you have any advice to deprogram this learning? I've been going crazy trying to suck back the thoughts as they happen. Tips, please.
I find that it has been coming up for maybe all women right now, because I think I can watch stuff and feel a lot of insecurities and comparing myself, and maybe that's collective energy, or that's just something I'm holding on to, but I can absolutely feel that as well.
Yes. I think these programs run so deep for women, and I don't know if it's only women, but as a woman, I can say I don't know of a single woman who doesn't experience that on some level. Criticism about her body or her face or her hair or whatever, and even deeper criticisms about her life in general. And I think, what was the name of the lady who asked the question?
Karen, I think.
Yes, and to Karen, I think even the fact that you're noticing it is a positive first step. It means it's no longer just an automatic drone. You're noticing that it's happening. So that's very positive. But I would really encourage so much gentleness and self-compassion, and know that that's part of the human condition, and that those voices may never fully go away, but we can learn to not buy into them as the ultimate truth. The ultimate story of who and what we are. It's like, oh, there's that critical voice again. How I'm not going to let it drive the bus, right? It's there, but we don't have to give it our power. So lots of gentleness and compassion, and
So
it's
amazing.
the key, defining voice of who you are.
So when that comes up, instead of allowing yourself to almost like attack another woman or compare yourself or talk down to them, it's like we have to be aware, like you say, of that pattern as soon as it comes up, and surround it in love.
When we criticize another, we're really just criticizing ourselves. Whenever we are judging or criticizing another, it says so much more about us than it does about them. So that's a red flag of what is this self-hatred about? This is about me. This is not about them. So that's another invitation to love yourself more.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
we talk
love
about that a lot.
that.
Yeah.
Because again, it comes back to everything is without is within. Everything exterior is just a mirror and a reflection of self and what we're going through. So yeah, every time we do get triggered or set off by someone else or what they're doing or critical, like you say, points us right back to
critique and judgment is really, when you boil it down, exactly what you said, Marie-Ève, is a self-love gap, because it's the ego saying, well, I'm going to find fault with you to justify and reaffirm that actually I'm in the right place and I have that security and peace in that place. And of course, it's sort of the bully in the playground mentality.
We had an interesting incident happen just a couple of days ago. Do you want to tell them that?
Well, I have a friend who's been a friend for probably 35 years. And he's been a business associate friend. And I thought highly of him, and we golfed together and we were friendly, but we didn't hang out all the time. And he rang to say he'd seen our picture on the cover of a magazine, on the cover of the Rolling Stone.
Yeah, we were on the cover of the
magazine. But he called up and he said, I saw you on the picture and it's lovely, and it's lovely to see your wife there. And then he hung up, but he didn't think he'd hung up. And so consequently, they went on for 4.5 minutes.
Criticizing us. Not knowing we were listening.
Not knowing we were listening, and left it on voicemail. And it was, they're woo-woo, and they've got this.
They're a bit crazy.
They're a bit crazy, and they're a bit loopy, and some very telling things. But it brings up the thought that consensus mind is not our friend, right? It's not our friend. And so it's a very interesting awareness to be aware of consensus mind. Ooh, I didn't know what I'm supposed to do, or I didn't know what I should have done, which is what both Kelly and Marie-Ève were making reference to.
But our takeaway when we heard them critiquing us was this says so much more about them and where they're at inside themselves than it does about us. And it still stung for a moment because we're human, but it wasn't about us.
Yeah.
Well, good for you for not taking it personally. And again, having that awareness. Did you ever tell them that you heard these words or communicate that? Was that
they know now.
Maybe they're tuned in live.
We told the whole world now, but yes, we did that. Hey, by the way, we were listening.
Oh my goodness! Do you want to share about the
thanks. We'll happily extricate you from the burden of having us as friends.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you just got to hold the space when you get through that period of hurt or personalization, however long it takes. and surround them with the love light frequencies as much as you can. And
Yeah.
that's all you can do. You know, that's like you said, Marie-Ève, it's their journey, and it reveals the light on where someone is at. And we've all sort of been there. But let's just let's move in, and then we'll go into the meditation here. But again, zooming out, talking about sort of the shift in density, which I wanted to get to. There's a remarkable amount of work on from the archaeological world right now, the esoteric archaeological world, and Graham Hancock has spearheaded that. Many others, if I throw his name into it, this Netflix show, which sort of came from nowhere, just sort of blowing open with fairly compelling evidence, in my view, although I haven't been to the places he's talking about, but he presented some good evidence on the journey to a degree of the civilization of mankind. Now, it goes back way further than he does, and he doesn't bring in the extraterrestrial component, doesn't bring in humanity's DNA. He doesn't have the whole picture, at least he doesn't share that. I've not spoken to him personally. But it does seem like, and this is getting to a point where it's so ridiculous that mainstream, the controlled elements of mainstream archaeology and geology and science and history are not recognizing hardcore evidence, like indisputable evidence in many regards. For example, you know, how the pyramids were built and things like this. There's many, many topics on this, but there's been this civilization of humanity that's come through that does appear to have gone through different rises and falls to a degree. But it seems like, and there's been sort of a wiping out of the civilization each time of the decline to a large degree, almost to the point of there's no one here, we start again, kind of thing, like a reset. Now, I don't believe, and I know you guys don't either, that humanity is going to go through this. In fact, I believe we're going to go through, as you guys do, an incredible ascension over the next 100, 200,000 years, whatever it will be, in different layers. But can you talk to people about this density shift that we're going through, which is producing all this? What is this density shift, and how do you think, as much as you can, if you want to go near this, what's going to happen over the next 12 months on top of that? What are we going to see?
So here's something that transpired when I was in the pyramids. There's the message of the pyramids, which is what Graham was really good friends with one of my teachers, John Anthony West. And one of the things that came out of the message of the pyramids is, at this time, a window will open. This is the precession of the equinox that many know about. At this time, a window will open where you can literally turn up to the higher realms and receive and ask for help in the process, or you can just ignore it. And that window opens and then it closes. And that period of time where it is open is a relatively short period of time. And as we start to do this, Graham and John Anthony West were very good friends. And at this time, we're going to start to realize that there is an enormous amount of help out there for our progressive time on Earth and how we contribute to its evolution. Or we can ignore it and just become so self-absorbed that self-gratification is the be-all and end-all. And I think there's a demarcation here in the world that is happening, where there are those who are inclined to act in a beneficent way towards the evolution of the planet, and those who are so self-absorbed that they are going to be swept away, for want of a better phrase. And this is the time. And it's a very magic time. And Graham brings up some interesting points in this show, the ancient apocalypse, and in that we need to ask some big questions. And part of the asking of the big questions is, who are we? Where do we come from? Why are we here? And what's next? And that's part of our lives' work. You know, in the meeting of the minds that's coming up, in Wild Mind that you're just launching this week, there's something more to this than meets the eye, and we beckon people to tap in, to plug in, and if we can contribute in that quest, then then we would be happy to do so.
And I'll add just a small soundbite, because I know we're running out of time. I don't profess to know what's going to happen, but I do know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is a divine intelligence at work. And I trust that with all of my being, that we are part of a much larger organic evolutionary process, and that as much as it's, we're co-creators and we have a part to play, it's also a lot about surrendering to a bigger agenda.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that there is this obviously mainstream narrative that we've been talking about, whether that's, about history and all of the ancient structures that they're finding, or this, medical and our DNA. It seems to be across like every field that there's that control structure that's in place. And it seems like whatever they're trying to do, people are just breaking through that and becoming aware and coming into their power. So it really does feel like we are at this choice point. And, it's interesting that you said that we can ask at this time, because there is help out there. We just have to, again, come into our power and be able to kind of connect with that. So we've been talking about that a lot lately, and that's been coming up a lot lately on even the show we were watching last night.
With Greg
Braden and
John Peterson, who we did a show with, 2 shows with.
They basically were saying the same thing that you were just explaining.
I want to throw something out there, maybe for the audience and for people, to take it as you will. In speaking to John, he goes back through the Department of Defense and what have you, and then he got out of the Black Project realm. But John said something to me off camera. You'll probably say this after our second show, I think, and it was, or on one of our Zooms, and it was that a lot of people are they're physically leaving the planet to finish their ascension elsewhere, and he knows that in his view personally. Interesting point. It could be accurate. We don't know that for sure. I can't say fully. But it resonates with me from a lot of angles. But I think some of us are going to disappear. Now, what I mean by that is when you have a car, there's a YouTube video, there's a car going across the screen. It's a fixed view of this red car about 50 meters away. And the car goes by and it comes back. It's just on a loop, right? And it gets faster and faster and faster and faster until you can't actually see it. It's completely vanished. Yeah. That's because the speed at which it's traveling is faster than the physical senses, at least the camera and us, can amalgamate into an understanding. So when and I'm not a scientist, so it's maybe speculation on the question. When we do this work, we raise our vibration, we raise our frequency in layers and layers and layers and layers. Resonantly, our atomic structure is moving faster. Our protons and electrons, our atomic structure is going faster. And so those who are not doing that, if we get to a point, and it's, of course, Jeff, this with all the masters that have done this, they just disappear. I think that there's a portion of humanity that will literally fade into a different sort of overlay or a different place, because the ability for people who are not doing the work and have chosen to maybe be the contrast and stay behind, they'll come back. They won't be able to see us. Now, this is described and demonstrated beautifully well in a movie called Midnight Special. And at the ending, this boy who goes through a crazy initiation, have you seen the movie? But at the end of it, the parents are taking him back to his drop-off point with these light beings. It's an amazing end to the movie. And he has this final big initiation and waking up, and this big flash of light. And all of a sudden, from the point of view of the matrix, if you like, the 3D world, you can suddenly see all these crystalline buildings, and it's right overlaid on top of the normal world. And these light beings come out of it and they take him off and he becomes a light being. It's a beautiful depiction. And I think something like this, of course, this is described also to some degree in Radio Cinema's books, where the Mayans allegedly, many of them left into an inner Earth portal, into a different plane. They left the planet to a degree and finished their ascension. They vanished. The Mayans vanished. No one can explain it. I think we're going to go into this resonance where we might disappear to some of this old world. Before we go into the meditation, what are your thoughts on that comment?
Well, if we try to call you one day and you don't answer, we'll know what happened. Poof, he's gone.
I think Dolores Cannon, who I worked with years ago, she had an interesting little snippet today, and she said, there's all kinds of dimensions going on. And I think it's naive of us to think that all kinds of dimensions are going on at the same time. And when you plug into them, you tune your frequency to them. Nikola Tesla said this too. You tune your frequency to them, you can plug into them. And I think one of the ways that we attune ourselves to the greater good and to our greater good, which are one and the same, is we organize our frequency in such a fashion that we can tune into the higher frequencies, so we can become more and more aware of the one, the law of one, that we are all one. And I think that's one aspect of where we want to go with this, is becoming more and more attuned, quickening, as the ancient masters would say, quicken yourself, and quickening to the point where you can rise into a higher awareness or a higher frequency and a higher attunement.
Absolutely. That's what I was thinking when David was talking about, just raising your frequency and disappearing. I was thinking of, the harvest. I was thinking of moving from the dimensions from 3D to 4D to 5D, as we were talking about. And again, I just think we're all at this choice point right now where we can either go that way, or we can kind of just stay back and live in this chaos as this old world is falling apart, or we, band together and create the new. So I know that's exactly what you two are doing, separately and individually, and coming together and bringing it all together, as one as well. So can we show the website?
Let's do the meditation, and then what I want to do is end on what you guys are doing, what you've got coming up. I know you've got some really cool courses and some very fun events coming up, and then we'll just we'll finish on that note.
Okay, so we're going to do a meditation led by Jeff and Marie-Ève tonight, and then we'll come back in and we'll show some of the upcoming events and courses that you two are working on.
So if you got headphones, guys, go and grab them. Or if you need to get in a quieter space for we'll probably be about a 5 to 10 minute meditation. We'll see what comes through. There's no time limit, but go and find a spot where you can be quiet and be undisturbed for that period of time. If you're new to our meditations, probably most of you aren't. We do work with the masters. We work with a lot of beings. I know Jeff is going to give us something special. He's going to bring in the masters. So be ready for that. And we'll just give you guys 30 seconds to get ready in the audience, and we will kick off.
Yeah, this is really exciting for anybody who meditates with us. It's so cool because David, the way he calls in the masters at the beginning of every global mass meditation that we do, is something that he actually learned from Jeff, from his mentorship and working with Jeff. So very much how David and I would do a meditation together. We are going to leave it to these two, and I feel like you'll find our style is very similar.
All right, guys. So we're just going to mute our mic here, and we're going to turn the floor over to you guys.
We ask for the presence of Jesus the Christ, Saint Germain the loved one, Zoroaster the king, Zarathustra the magi, Lao Tzu the old sage, the Buddha, Babaji the eternal one, Lahiri Mahasaya the smiling guru, Sri Yukteswar the teacher, Paramahansa Yogananda the gift, El Moria the lord of the first ray, Kuthumi the great guiding light, Dwal Kul the master teacher, Paul the Venetian, Serapis Bey the lord of ascension, Hilarion the bringer of joy, the English master, Douglas Baker the keeper of this ashram, Krishna the avatar, Mohammed the prophet, Kuan Yin the incandescent one, Ena, the ninth dimensional being. Isis, the great grandmother. Osiris, the great grandfather. Sanat Kumara, the planetary logos. Amun-Ra, our solar logos. The master in you. Yahweh in you. Savior in you. A deep breath in through your nose, deep, 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 deep. Activate the pineal and hold. Activate. And release. And another deep breath in, deep, deep, deep. And hold. Activating the pineal. And release. And one more time, deep, deep, deep. Activating the pineal. The sacred square inch between your eyebrows. And release.
Wherever you are, allow yourself to begin to sense the presence of the ground. So actually feeling the solidity, the stability of the earth beneath you. And feel the extension of the earth in whatever you're sitting or resting on, your chair, your bed, your couch. And as you feel the feedback of the ground, see if you can surrender the weight of your body a little bit more into gravity and into the ground. And allow the feedback of the earth to land with you as support. You are being held. You are being sustained. You are being nourished. Allow yourself to receive that in whatever way you're able. And I invite you now to notice the sensations of your body. Just noting the tone and the texture, the sensation of your physical body. Notice if there are any sensations that draw your attention more than others. Notice if there are any parts of your body that are asking for your attention more than others. And simply allow yourself to hold yourself in your own presence for a moment. We've called in the masters, but we are also calling you in as a master. Your presence, your devotion, your light. And without trying to fix anything, without trying to accomplish anything or do anything fancy here, simply be with yourself. Be with the sensation. And be with the breath. be with your own being. And drink in this simplicity as a high form of nourishment, a high form of medicine. Nowhere to go, nothing to do, no one to be. Just this. Let's allow our last few breaths here to be a little fuller, a little more intentional, a little more nourishing, really following the length of your inhale and your exhale. Oh, precious breath. Oh, precious body, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then slowly and so very gently, you can take your time and come back. And there is no rush here, opening your eyes when you're ready and not a moment before. And we apologize if you heard our puppy scratching. He's a full-time job, this one.
So good, guys. Oh, so good.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
It's such a teaser of a sneak peek to the work you guys do. It was beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, so good. Well, let's start to wind things up now. I know you guys have got a schedule. Jeff is off to teach a class very shortly. And Marie-Ève, you're doing some amazing work with Center Within. Let's talk about that, and then we'll close out here. Do you want to just maybe speak about real quick what you guys have got coming up? And I can bring that up on the screen, and then we'll do a little finish with individual stuff. How about that?
Certainly. So one of our shared offerings that's coming up is a 3-part series called Meeting of the Minds. Mm-hmm. And that begins on February 26th. That's a Sunday afternoon. And then the following 2 parts are Sunday, March 26th and Sunday, April 23rd. So they are about a month apart. Mm-hmm. And this is our program that looks at the power of the mind and the power of consciousness and what we have the ability to tap into as human beings. So looking at conscious and subconscious mind, looking at higher and lower mind, looking at the creative power of visualization, imagination, meditation. Do you want to elaborate on that?
I think you nailed it. I mean, it's part of marrying the higher and the lower. It's part of attuning your personality to the majesty and the dictates of the soul of your genius. Mm-hmm. And it's tuning in.
Mm-hmm. I'm just showing it on screen here, guys. And I think what I wanted to point out was, aside from all this, check out that there'll be a link in the description to this particular course, guys, as with everything. But for $55 a session, having attended Jeff and Marie-Ève sessions many times, the value you're going to get from this, it's in person and via Zoom as well, I believe.
Yes.
Is I already described to you the value you're going to get. It's going to be extraordinary. It's going to be transformational for sure.
Thank you, David. And yes, it's absolutely available live to people who are in Calgary, Canada. So we have a private teaching sanctuary in our home here. And so we're welcoming a group live, and then we'll also be welcoming people to this event on Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
Yeah, I love that you guys have that option because, again, a ton of our audience is global. I saw somebody hopping on from Thailand, all over the place. Oh, yeah. So it's almost imperative that we offer these online services for people these days, and light workers being so spread out across the globe.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's great that we can all come together online.
We have such a soft spot for in-person events because we love to hug our people and we love to see the light in each other's eyes. And yes, we're going to be doing more and more stuff on Zoom as well.
Amazing. Well, we'll finish with you, Marie-Ève, in a second. Jeff, you want to talk a little bit about retooling the world?
Go to a new website.
Yeah, we'll do retooling the world. And as much as you want to share with that, maybe join material, the classes and the format and things like that. What do you want to share with that?
Well, when I was quite a young man in my early adulthood, I was given the task of writing a book. It hasn't been written yet, called Retooling for Our Coming of Age. And I think what has transpired in the last little bit is, in retooling the world, we address the spiritual unrest that is rampant amongst light bearers in the world. And part of this is waking up the genius that has always been there. And part of it is using the ancient teachings and the ancient wisdom to remember your divinity and remember your brilliance. And one of the reasons the ancient truths never go out of style is because truth never gets old. It isn't something that goes in and out of fashion. And so the joy material is kind of like a modern day mystery school. And it teaches profoundly using the law of paradox. And it also teaches you how to look at the world through different eyes. And as one of the great masters said, there's nothing you cannot change but by a change of perspective. And one of the things this does is it gives you the capacity to look at the world through different eyes, through a different lens. And one of the things that Marie-Ève does, conventional psychology says, here, put these glasses on and look through my eyes and you'll be okay. And Marie-Ève's practice is almost the antithesis of that. And that is, you are the master. You are the visionary, if you will. What's in the way of you being in a place of perfect clarity? So we both now we come to it from different aspects. I come to it from a very masculine approach, and Marie-Ève comes from it from a very feminine approach. And it's one of the reasons we're doing the work we're doing together, is because we were brought together on purpose. So it's a big thing.
Amazing. Yeah. No, I've done joy. I can't remember how many times now, 2 or 3, maybe even 4. I forget. But you're in the middle of a semester right now, so people can't join joy class right now, or can they?
Well, because the semester has started, they will be coming in after the first selection. There's 12. However, we are welcoming. I've got new people coming in tonight, in the next little bit, and so if people want to join now, it's probably timely. But after a week or so, the door will be closing, just because they will have missed so much, and a lot of the material is based on the first several selections. It builds on.
Okay.
And how many times do you offer joy class? Do you do twice a year, or?
We offer joy class 3 times a year, a fall, winter, and a spring semester, and it's a 12-week course. And it forms, in essence, a great foundation for all of the other stuff we teach. And yet it's not necessarily a prerequisite for all of the stuff that we teach. It's a modern day mystery school.
Okay, and links will be in the description, guys. Please do go and check that out. How do people get in touch with you, Jeff, with retooling? Can they fire you an email or?
Yep, the website is retoolingtheworld.com, and the email address is retoolingtheworld@gmail.com.
Okay, I'll pop those in the description as well, guys. Beautiful. And I can personally attest to the joy material and the classes. They are absolutely phenomenal. Can't wait to get back involved with them again. Marie-Ève, let's close out with you and the amazing work you're doing with the spiritual therapy, to sort of put it in a polite way, but it's obviously much deeper than that. I'll bring up Centered Within. Do you want to just talk about what you're doing and who should maybe get in contact with you right now? Who's a great person to join up with you?
Thank you, David. So yeah, Centered Within is my company, and that was the name I was given when I was in my dark night of the soul. And so it's spiritual psychotherapy, but as David said, it's so much more than that. So I work with people one-on-one, helping them to get in touch with their center, get in touch with their truth, and to really reconnect with themselves, and then to build a life that is soul-centered and heart-led and inspiring. A lot of people come to me and they feel like something is just not quite in alignment. Something is just missing. They know there's something more. And so the pathway looks different for everyone, but I do one-on-one work live with people in Calgary, and then also online via Zoom worldwide. And I love my people. I feel so honored by the work I do. I feel so honored by the people I get to support, and it's one of the greatest joys and honors of my life to do this work. And then I also offer group work, and I'm starting a new group this Wednesday. It's a live course called Wild Truth. And this one is specifically for women who are looking to really get in touch with what is true for them and live in greater alignment to truth. Truth with a capital T. So I hear from women so often that they're doing what they should do, and they're doing what they're trained to do, and they're what they're supposed to do. They're being the good girl and the people pleaser. Yeah, Kelly can relate. So I hear about this from women constantly. And so this group experience is a response to that. It's how do we get in alignment with our true self, our wild self, and with what some could call being self-authored. So living from the inside out instead of from the outside in. So I'm over the moon about this one. It starts this Wednesday evening. I have just a couple spots left, and the group of women that has formed for this is awe-inspiring. Yeah. And we start Wednesday evening.
Wow. Incredible, magical stuff. And so how can people get in touch with you? How can they register for that?
So that's on my website here, centeredwithin.org. And the registration form is right there, centeredwithin.org/wild truth.
Okay. Yeah.
And the registration is there. Yeah.
I got that up on the screen. Yeah, I was scrolling through your website. It's on screen as you're talking. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah. So that's my latest. That's my latest one starting in 2 days. But I run courses on repeat. We do creative soul writing. We just finished Emanate, Becoming the Living Beacon of Your Soul Medicine, which was powerful. We've got Meeting of the Minds coming up.
So much. Amazing.
Yes. So the group work is one of my passions. There's magic that happens when a group of people comes together to do this type of work. And it is, again, such a joy and an honor to do this.
Just getting lost in your amazing science. So good.
Well, thank you both so much for all of the work that you're doing for humanity and all of your service. And
also both on Instagram and Facebook. So my Instagram, Facebook is at Centered Within, and Jeff is Retooling the World.
Okay. I'll pop those all in the description, guys. So go and check out all of their work. If you're on a spiritual journey right now, you should both be checking out Jeff and Marie-Ève. Then let me tell you what to do, but I would highly recommend them both. And guys, thank you so much for joining us. Beautiful little meditation, beautiful conversation. It's far too short, so we'll do it again. I'm absolutely sure. Just stay on the line here as we close off. I know you got to get out of here, but guys, if you want to, again, get involved with Marie-Ève and Jeff's work, check out the description. Thank you for joining us all today. We hope you enjoyed the show. We have got a guest coming up at the end of February. Those of you who are not on the mailing list, we have got Aaron Abke coming up at the end of the month, which is going to be another great conversation. And we will see you all live next Thursday. This Thursday?
This Thursday?
Yeah, for our next meditation.
February 22 portal.
22 portal.
Groundhog Day.
Okay, Groundhog Day.
Thank you for hosting us. You guys are so lovely. And we are so appreciative of all that you're doing.
And we are just so full of love and gratitude for you both for being here tonight with us. And we look forward to connecting with you soon online and hopefully in person this summer.
Yeah, we're coming out to Edmonton when we check out of this place.
Calgary.
End of May. Sorry, Calgary. Yeah. Why would I go to Edmonton? The new 15-minute city. What is it going to be?
Yeah. First on the list in Canada, apparently.
Anyway, okay.
Let's end on a positive note.
I don't want to stay in Edmonton more than 15 minutes. That's good for me. Anyway, Just kidding, all you Edmontonites who are joining us. I'm sorry.
Edmonton has got a soft spot in my heart, and so does Calgary. So we hope to see you all soon, and thank you again. And towards the light we go.
Towards light we go. We'll see you guys soon. Just stay on the line, guys, and we'll just finish off here.